So everyone has heard of the radio, but what not everyone has heard of is the history of the radio and how it was kind of invented and brought about and became a thing that became super important to the world. So I would like to know that. So we're going to look into it. And the first way that we're going to look into it is by asking the question, how was the radio invented? Question mark. Federal Communications Commission.gov. Oh, this looks fun. A short history of the radio. Pioneers of the radio. If success has many fathers, then radio is one of the world's greatest successes. Oh, and that it has many fathers. That's a confusing sentence. So one way to sort out all of the different parents of the radio is to put them into groups based on the credit that they have. So the scientist group include these guys. Heinrich Hertz, German physicist, died of blood poisoning. Bummer. Was the first to prove that you could transmit and receive electrical waves wirelessly. Tesla. Next one. Doesn't say what he helped out with the radio, but it does say the Tesla coil is widely used in radio. Okay, maybe that was it. Ernst Alexander developed the first alternator to make transmission of speech possible. For some reason, it's said that this guy, who holds 344 patents, virtually invented everything General Electric did in the field of AM, FM, and TV. Prolific. Reginald Fessenden. He developed a way to combine sound and radio carrier waves. So it looks like he built on Alexanderson, this guy, his technology, and made the first long-range transmission of voice from Brant Rock, something. Massachusetts, maybe? And coming up here, Edwin Armstrong created the FM radio and the regenerative circuit. Also created the first amplifying receiver, reliable continuous wave transmitter, and the superheterodyne circuit, which is a means of receiving, converting, and amplifying weak, high-frequency electromagnetic waves. That's super cool, and I don't understand any of that. Oh, his inventions provide the foundations for cell phones. That's cool. Edwin Armstrong. And then, so I guess there's only two groups. They're grouping them into the scientists and the businessmen. First businessman, Guglielmo Marconi. Guglielmo Marconi introduced many of the first uses of wireless telegraphy. His radio apparatus is widely considered to be the reason a lot of people survived the Titanic. DeForest, credited with being the father of American radio, direct competitor to Marconi, this guy. Marconi eventually took over DeForest's company assets after a series of financial scandals. He held 300 patents? It's like this other guy. This guy had 344. This guy, DeForest's greatest technological contribution is considered to be the Audion vacuum tube, which sounds really cool, but I don't know what it does. These pictures are confusing, but I know for sure that that's Tesla right there because he has the center Dwight part and a little mustache. He's got a very well-known face, I feel like. And this guy in the middle in color is this guy Guglielmo Marconi. So these are just documenting all of the different uses for the radio. Back in the day, the first police scanners were being used. He used a radio from a phone or from a plane to communicate with the grounds. This guy's using a radio for the ambulance. Radio to communicate with cell towers, with the phone, with the Titanic. Oh, cool picture of the Titanic with a big old line strung between. Cell phones are one of today's mobile radios, in theory. Okay, let's look and see if we can glean any more information from this first search. Let's try PBS. I feel like they are semi-reliable. The development of the radio. So when you think about radio, what often comes to mind is music that is being broadcast. But it wasn't always so advanced or popular. So like we learned before, this guy was the first to discover electromagnetic waves. He discovered that a magnetic field is created around a wire that has current running through it. This is the principle of electromagnetic induction. So then this guy in 1864 said that these electromagnetic currents could be perceived at a distance. He also said that the waves traveled at the speed of light, boldly postulated. Oh wait, no, this is the guy, Heinrich Hertz, that tested the theory and succeeded in producing the electromagnetic waves. So this guy was just postulating. So 1880, electromagnetic waves are proven to exist, I guess. Then Guglielmo Marconi figured out how to get the electromagnetic waves out of the lab and into the world. In 1899, he telegraphed the results of the American Cup races, yacht races, from sea to land-based station in New York. By the end of 1901, he had founded his own commercial wireless company and was broadcasting the first transatlantic signal. At first, wireless broadcasts were limited to dots and dashes, so like Morse code, That sounds like Morse code. But then Reginald Fessenden changed that by sending the first long-distance transmission of a human voice and music. After that, it was a steady stream. 1907, DeForest patented his Audion signal detector, which allowed for radio frequencies to be amplified by a lot. And then this guy, Edwin Armstrong, discovers how the super heterodyne circuit can make FM broadcasts a thing. FM provides a clearer broadcast signal than AM, which kind of begs the question, like, why are we still using AM? Entertainment broadcasting begins in 1910. The 1920s to the early 50s is considered the golden age of radio. Introduction of the television was the end of the golden age. Cool. All right, so we got a baseline. It seems like they are crediting this guy, Marconi, as like kind of the father of this radio, or like kind of the, seems like they are saying that he's like the one who made the biggest breakthrough in like making radio a thing. So let's look at him a little bit. Marconi's contribution to the radio. Britannica. All right, so Guglielmo, I'm 80% certain that's the right way to say this. Born in Italy, physicist and inventor, received the Nobel Prize for physics in 1909. So his dad was an Italian, his mother was Irish. So Marconi began experimenting at his father's estate near Bologna, so not poor. Seems like he also jumped around between several different schools when he was younger, so he's coming from means. So initially he was just using crude apparatuses, an induction coil, spark discharger for controlling the Morse key, and a receiver. After a few preliminary experiences, he started to improve things, and then by systematic tests, he increased the range by using a vertical aerial with a metal plate or cylinder at the top of a pole connected to a similar plate on the ground. And then he figured out, at this time he was able to send the signal about 1.5 miles, which made him think, aha, this could be big. He didn't get a lot of encouragement, but continued his experiments, filed his first patent in England in 1896, and then gave a series of successful demonstrations in which he used balloons and kites to obtain greater heights for the aerials that were sending the signal. At this point, he's able to send signals over 4 miles and 9 miles. These tests attract considerable publicity. There was a lot of skepticism at this point about the useful application of these means of communication, and a lack of interest in its exploitation. Why is there so little interest? Like, I feel like if you could send a signal to somebody 9 miles away, I feel like that would be worthwhile. Like, you can get an instant message to someone who's 9 miles away. Where is the telephone and the telegraph at this point in history? I am absolute trash at history, so I have no idea. He filed the patent in 1896, so where is the telegraph and telephone at this point? But this guy, Marconi's cousin, Jameson Davis, he's an engineer, and he finances the first patent, helps him in the formation of Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company, Ltd. In 1899, he equips 2 American ships to report to newspapers in New York. Oh, this is what we heard before, the progress of the yacht race for the American Cup. And this demonstration aroused worldwide excitement. He establishes a marine communication company for the purpose of installing and operating services between ships and land, which honestly I can see the appeal there. He starts to do some other cool, groundbreaking research. A lot of people thought that the curvature of the Earth would limit practical communications by means of electrical waves to a distance of 100 to 200 miles. But Marconi succeeds in transmitting across the Atlantic Ocean, which is a sensation in every part of the civilized world. So he discovered that because some radio waves travel by reflection and from some of the upper regions of the atmosphere, transmission conditions are sometimes more favorable at night. He patents the magnetic detector, and he does a bunch of other stuff. I'm not super interested in all this other fine details. He got a lot of honors, Nobel Prize, and some other stuff. Okay, let's look back at that original article we were looking at, because it said that other guy was the first one to do voice. This guy, Reginald Fessenden, which I'm pretty sure is this guy right here with the glasses. Let's check him out a little bit. Reginald Fessenden's contribution to the radio. Let's go back with Britannica. Why not? So this guy is Canadian, radio pioneer. So he ended up teaching at a school. He developed an interest in science that led him to resign his teaching post. He started working as a tester at the Edison Machine Works. Met Edison in 1887. He's a contemporary of Edison, where he became the chief chemist at Edison's lab. Bounced around between a couple different companies. Turned to an academic career as a professor of electrical engineering after getting laid off from these other companies, got some funding and started working on the problem of wireless communication. In 1900, he left the university and started conducting experiments for the US Weather Bureau on wireless telegraphy. He was impatient with the simple on-off transmission of Morse code signals, so he became interested in transmitting continuous sound, particularly that of the human voice, which, understandably, would be a very useful thing. He got the idea to superimpose an electrical signal oscillating at the frequency of the sound waves upon a radio wave. Wait, what? He's superimposing an electrical signal onto a radio wave. Like, what the heck? That is so crazy. How? So he's modulating the radio wave into the shape of the sound wave. Wild. This is the principle of amplitude modulation. This is the principle of amplitude modulation, which is AM. Oh, good to know. AM stands for amplitude modulation. In 1900, he succeeds in sending a brief transmission 1 mile apart. What was the transmission? Does it not say? So then he invents and patents a number of components useful for radio telephony. So he also kind of pioneers the different frequencies, low frequency, and whatnot that are forerunners of the principle of the superheterodyne reception, which made easy tuning of radio signals possible. Critical factor for the later growth of commercial broadcasting. So later on, he joins the National Electric Signaling Company. They're competing with Marconi to transmit across the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, I really want to know like where the state of the phone and the telegraph are at this point, because I feel like that would be useful to know, and none of these things are really talking about it. So like, when was the telegraph invented? Okay, I think I might make a little timeline for myself, just because I know that I could probably find a timeline about when all these things are happening, but I don't want to do all that searching, and I feel like if I just make it myself, it might be easier. All right, so we'll put on here, the telegraph was 1837. Electrical telegraph invented. Ugh, I hate AI overviews. They offer like cheap, easy answers, and I never trust them. Strayhistory.com. Okay, this is saying in the 1830s and 1840s. So maybe we'll just go with 1837. Let me just grab a picture here. 1837. Okay, let me just grab a couple other things. Be right back. Okay, so the telegraph is invented in 1837, and then Morse code is invented like just a couple years. It says in the 1830s, so around the same time, Morse code is invented. So then in 1876, the telephone is invented. So that's like 40 years later-ish. And then after that, wireless radio comes around another 20 years after that. So the telegram and the telephone have been around for a long time before the wireless radio is invented. So why were people so hesitant initially? Like, it seems like maybe they're like, oh, we already have these things and they're pretty cool. Why do we need this extra thing that still can only go like a mile when the phone and the telegraph can go a lot farther? Is that what they're thinking? Okay, here's a thought though. If the wireless radio is invented here, and here is the phone, this has like a little receiver. Is this a microphone? How is the sound getting into the phone to be transmitted over the wire? And why was this guy, Marconi, not using that type of thing for his radio? Why did it take so long for Fessenden to... Well, I guess you had to figure out how to do it wirelessly, but I guess my question is about the microphone. Did Fessenden invent a microphone for his radio? EBSCO. Wow, this is a tiny font. So he initially used an ordinary telephone microphone to get the sound out. This is kind of fun. He was the main one doing this, and he played violin, sang, read from the Bible, also transmitted the sounds of a phonograph recording. Wish the listeners a Merry Christmas. It's kind of fun. Let me look and see if anything else is forthcoming. Let's try this one. Spark Museum, electrical inventions. So this is talking about recording studios for like band members. Early recording studios had singers and musicians had the crowd around the mouth of a large cone. The sound would travel down the horn's throat, vibrate a stylus, would cut the audio directly into a cylinder made of soft wax. Oh dang. Real musicians record on wax, says Charlie Bryant. It's the most honest sound. It's like the OG vinyl enthusiast. Okay, so a lot of people early on were at a big disadvantage because if you didn't have a big booming sound wave, you couldn't vibrate the needle enough to make an impression on the wax. So the first practical microphones were developed for telephony. Telephony? So yeah, Bell's new telephone was the first one to use a microphone, carbon button microphone with a diaphragm that vibrated when struck by sound waves. Okay, here's a question though. If your radio has like a microphone and is like putting out power, and then there's a receiver getting power and like putting out sound, like where is the power coming from to do these things? Is it like plugged into, like, I don't think there's wall outlets. Like, how are they getting power to power their wireless receiver? Because on further inspection, it seems that the main draw of the wireless radio is that it's wireless, right? Earlier with the phone and the telegraph, you had to have a physical wire connecting the two places, but with the wireless radio, you can just be like wherever you need to be, and you don't need to set up a big wire, or you can be moving around, whatever. Anyways, but you still need power to power your radio. So where is that power coming from? Is it batteries? How did early radios get power? Question mark. We haven't done a Reddit thread yet. Let's try that. Radios before electricity. So this guy was talking to grandma. She mentioned that before they got electricity on the farm, they had a radio that would run on batteries. Whoa. In the 1930s. Okay, so quite a while after this. So this person is wondering, how common was this and how did they charge the batteries? This person says in the mid 1930s, they were making farm radios. They were running on DC power. So the AC model radios would plug into a wall outlet, but the farm radios had to be clipped into batteries. 6, 12, 32 volt batteries. Heavy jars or rubber cement containers filled with sulfuric acid. Yikes. Kept in the basement, a heavy wire passing through a hole in the living room floor connected the battery and the radio. Oh wow. Often kept in the basement because it would burn holes in the carpet. Here's an article about it. Let's look at it. Farm radios. Communication before rural electrification. So the cities had AC electricity many years before the public funding made it possible to build power lines to send out to cities and down the roadways. In the mid-1930s, they were doing these AC farm radios running on DC power. So just from the outside of the radio cabinet, you couldn't tell the difference. Okay, I want to look at these batteries. 6 volt battery in the 1930s. Is this a battery? From the right time period though? Let's just try radio battery. Aha. Here's an image of one that's plugged in. It's hard to see, but dang, check that out. It's like a car battery. This is a pretty good one. I'm just gonna add this to my timeline real fast. Boom, pop that right in there. 1930s. Back to this article, batteries had to be recharged, but they weighed too much. The Zenith Radio Company made a popular windmill system called the Zenith Wind Charger with free power from the air. That's cool. Here's an image of a Zenith Wind Charger. Now we're talking. That's so cool. It's just like a windmill. Only $1,500. Charged by the wind. Man, how come we don't still use like little tiny backyard windmills now? That's fun. Okay. All right. Okay. So we've been distracted. A lot of these things have talked about the difference between AM and FM radio. Let's check that out real fast. The history of AM versus FM radio. Mini Circuits blog. Radio history. So FM is an abbreviation for frequency modulation. So FM is more efficient than AM, produces clearer, more robust signals that are less prone to interference from other sources. Which, I mean, I think I asked this question already, but why are we still using AM if FM is so much better? So in 1930s, home radios had started to become popular in the actual household of everybody. Here's some people using the radio in their house. But FM didn't start to take hold until the 1960s, 30 years later. AM radio, so FM started to spring up for listening to music like rock and jazz. AM radio was typically used to broadcast spoken word. The growth of FM radio was further fueled by the proliferation of the home stereo system in the 50s and 60s. Okay, but what the heck? Let's look at something else and see if we can't find an answer. Let's try this one. Radioactive media. One of the key advantages of AM is its ability to provide coverage over a large area with relatively low power. AM waves can travel long distances by bouncing off the ionosphere. So cool. AM signals can be received hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Another advantage is its simplicity. AM radio receivers are relatively easy to build and to operate, and they don't require as much complex circuitry. Okay, that's pretty cool, but I need to move on because I'm running out of time, and I want to know, one of those images or articles a while back said something about Marconi and Tesla having a beef. Like there was drama between the two of them fighting over patents or something. I didn't really read it, but I want to know a little bit more about it because it sounded interesting. The Marconi Tesla drama, Nuts and Bolts magazine. Okay, you probably think that Marconi invented the radio, but he didn't. He read this book called Tesla, Man Out of Time. Tesla had a lot of unbelievable inventions. He was not only a success in the electrical fields, but also a terrible failure in many ways. One of those failures was his inability to get recognition for inventing the radio during his life. So Tesla worked with Edison in the late 1800s. Some of the things he did while working with Edison were improvements to the telegraph, arc lights, and all manner of electrical machines. So it says Tesla actually invented the idea of radio in 1892, not long after Hertz demonstrated spark wireless transmissions. He developed a radio-controlled robotic boat, which he demonstrated by driving remotely around the waters of Manhattan in Madison Square Garden. He tried for years to sell this idea to the Navy without success. Marconi later burst onto the scene and stole the show with patents of his own. Once he realized how important the radio was, Tesla built a huge transmitting tower, but he ran out of money and couldn't raise capital to continue. Okay, like that doesn't make it sound like Tesla invented the radio to me. That just makes it sound like he didn't do it quickly enough. Like he had an idea, but it didn't take off. Like maybe he did do some good work, but it wasn't like, I don't know, history is written by the victors, right? So there was a patent battle between Tesla and Marconi that went on for years. Marconi died in 1937, Tesla died in 1943. 6 months after his death, the Supreme Court ruled that all Marconi's radio patents were invalid and awarded the patents for radio to Tesla. So if they awarded the patents to Tesla, like why is it still not known? Also, there's this weird thing about Tesla where everybody kind of like idolizes him. I don't get the Tesla hype. Like, seems like he was a pretty awesome dude who invented a lot of cool stuff, but also, I don't know what it is. I just feel like he gets hyped up so much. Okay, let's see if there's a record of this court case. Might be interesting to look at. I think I might have actually seen it in this search. Justice, Supreme Court. Here we go. Now we're talking. Okay, I've just spent the past several minutes trying to like read through this stuff. It is so confusing. Legalese. Also was written in 1943. This is wildly confusing. And also incredibly long. Look at how long this is. Holy cow. Okay, I'm going to have somebody else summarize this for me. Let's look at this PBS article. Master of Lightning. Okay, so Tesla discovers that he can transmit and receive powerful radio signals with his Tesla coils. By 1895, Tesla was ready to transmit a signal 50 miles. Wait, let me look at our timeline. 95. Okay, so that's a year before Marconi patents his thing. Same year, disaster. Oh no, a building fire consumes all of Tesla's work. So Marconi patents his thing in 96, the next year. So Marconi later sets up a long-distance demonstration using a Tesla oscillator. Oh, so he's using Tesla's oscillator to transmit the signals? Tesla files his own basic radio patent in 1997, 2 years later, and they were granted in 1900. Marconi's first patent in America was turned down. Marconi's revised applications over the next 3 years were repeatedly rejected because of the priority of Tesla and other inventors. Interesting. So the patent office says this, where he basically says that Marconi's pretended ignorance of knowing what a Tesla oscillator is absurd because it's become a household word on both continents, Europe and North America. Interesting. So this was like a super common thing. Also, what's up with like Tesla naming everything after himself? Tesla coils, Tesla oscillator. Okay, so no patent is truly safe though. In the 1900s, Marconi's telegraph company begins thriving in the stock market, primarily due to Marconi's family connections with English aristocracy. Interesting. Because we did learn before that Marconi did come from a bit of money. Marconi stock soars. This guy, Otis Pond, is working for Tesla and says, "It looks like Marconi got the jump on you." And Tesla replies, "Marconi's a good fellow. Let him continue. He's using 17 of my patents." Okay. But Tesla's confidence is shattered when the US Patent Office suddenly and surprisingly reverses their decision to give Marconi a patent for the invention of the radio. Reasons for this have never been fully explained, but the powerful financial backing for Marconi in the United States suggests one possible explanation. So basically he bought his way into the patents, is what they're suggesting. This is in 1904. So he got the patent in, this is all happening within a couple years. At the time, Tesla had a lot of other problems. But when Marconi won the Nobel Peace Prize, Tesla is not happy, sues Marconi for company infringement in 1915, but he's in no financial condition to actually litigate it. And not until 1943, a few months after Tesla's death, that the Supreme Court upholds Tesla's patent. But it sounds like the court had selfish reasons for doing so. The Marconi company was suing the US government for use of its patents in World War I, so the court restores priority of Tesla's patents over Marconi. Wow, okay, that is some shenanigans for sure. Bummer, Tesla. I'm sorry, Tesla. You got screwed. Well, that was very interesting. The radio is pretty wild. So that's all the time I have, though. I'm out of time to keep digging and looking, but if you have other questions, you want me to look into other things, let me know. I am more than happy to do some digging. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.